Minister, thanks a lot for coming. So there was this new plan for the reintegration of Donbas by the government, which had become public. So what are the key things we need to know? What the Ukrainian government propose to the population, to the country as the way forward?
This action plan is very important. This is a key message to all Ukrainians who live within non-government control areas, that they are Ukrainians and the government is going to do all its best in order to reintegrate them by non-military solution. The first thing, important thing to understand, no military solution for this conflict. Another thing very important from my point of view, different ways to do that in education, in culture areas, business, all things in that action plan in order to achieve our goal. The main and the very important goal is to reintegrate those people in one united Ukrainian society.
But what are the tools? You know, it sounds all good, but what the usual critique is that it's all hardly possible.
You can find easily in that action plan some practical things that we can implement. For example, in business area, we are going to simplify some procedures for reporting for business structures, for business entities working in non-government control areas, for example. We are going to support the process of paying regularly salaries to those workers who work for Ukrainian-controlled companies, state-owned companies. So, for example, one of our proposals with Ministry of Education is to let children from non-government control areas enroll courses within government control areas and even enter to Ukrainian institutes and universities. So a lot of things in that plan that we should implement from our point of view in order to keep those people closer to the rest of Ukraine.
And what would be the first step needed that the action plan is enforced? Like what we start? So what is this roadmap to start?
This is not a linear process. A lot of things should be done in parallel. For example, if we are talking about contact line, we should pay attention to some signals from grassroots about corruption. So we should act, we should find an appropriate way to fight corruption at the contact line in checkpoints or along the contact line, for example. At the same time, it doesn't mean that we should wait. The process should be implemented. And then, only then, after all things with corruption, should start, for example, some process in education area. So all things should be implemented in parallel. So that's the key element of this plan. All ministries, all central agencies should be involved and should start all together.
But what is the current position? As far as we know, at least that was in the public sphere, that the law enforcement agents, the security ministers, you know, the heavyweights, such as like Ministry of Defense, Security Service, Security Council, those not other groups which are really moving forward with particularly this kind of solution at the moment, at least but the actions. So how are you going to overcome that, and to what extent they've been involved that they would participate, because without their participation you can't really do much.
In that plan, we as a government is a leading body. So it means that all civilian authorities should be involved in this in very close cooperation with SBU and with some, for example, Border Protection Service authority. So it means that before this plan, all of them sent us their formal approval of this because they are in the plan. So some consents have been gotten from those authorities before this plan was implemented by the government.
And then we can speak about the Ukrainian parliament. The deputy speaker, Oksana Serid, who is a pretty heavyweighter at the public discussion out of the public politicians, heavily criticized the plan, calling it pro-Russian, and says that any concession could be done, more or less the model of the separation and the fact that we should prove that these territories are under Russian occupation would be the better way forward. How are you going to deal with that? And how we can think what would be the role of the parliament and how you want to do that if you have this kind of a discussion at the moment?
Please take note that she represents opposition in Ukraine, parliamentarian opposition. So that, in my opinion, is her role to criticize the government. But at the same time, I don't think that our strategic approach is pro-Russian, because some even international formal documents highlight that there's conflict we can use during this conflict or during discussion process of this conflict. We understand that, and our partners understand that. This conflict based on principle of effective control. So it means that Russia controls those people who are ruling those territories for the time being, with participation of Russian troops, etc., special services, etc. So it means that we follow even recommendation of Council of Europe, for example. So we no problem with that from my point of view.
And what do you think are the main obstacles and how you would like to move forward with that at this stage? Because definitely
political risks and implementation capacities of some authorities.
What are they? Political risks, for instance, what are they?
Like you mentioned above, for example, criticism from some policymakers trying to adopt, for example, some regulations or even law in Verkhovna Rada to block these activities from the government.
So, and who are your allies?
The president, the prime minister. You have heard their official statements about support.
And how do you want to reach out the people in the occupied territories? They know about that. It's not in the world. This, it's good to have the plan in Kyiv, maybe in Slavyansk and Kramatorsk, but that's for something else.
You can find in that plan one provision about information policy, and even about our strategic approach to reach those people. So we are going to use social media, even newspapers at checkpoints close to contact line in order to disseminate this information about governmental strategy to those who live within NGCA.
So if to speak in a very simple term, if we really meet and I would have this chance, for instance, to explain a common person in Donetsk or in Luhansk that the Ukrainian government proposes you A, B, C. How would you put it in that way? That would be very simple. You won't say that like we have a plan for you, read it and try to make sense. So what would be the message you would say?
It depends. For example, if we are going to discuss this with someone from steel plant within NGCA or with someone who worked for Ukrainian Railways state-owned company, we should highlight that we will do our best as a government to support efforts from those state companies to pay them salary regularly and to have this connectivity with the rest of Ukraine. If we are talking about people who every day try to cross the contact line, we should explain them that we are going to do all our best in order to simplify all procedures, in order to let you go into controlled territories more freely without additional restrictions, etc. You can bring more foods, you can buy more, you can use your Visa card issued by Ukrainian banks, etc., etc. So it depends.
Okay. And final, that's good we have this plan. Finally, the people from Crimea would ask, where would be plan for the Crimea?
We have been elaborating similar documents for Crimea, and we have been working closely with NGOs and with some international partners. And then we will be discussing this with the central authorities. And only after that, after the final stage of discussing, we will submit it to the government.
Any time frame?
I think approximately, it can take approximately 1 month.
Okay, that's pretty short term. Okay, thanks a lot. We'll go and follow into the details.
Thank you.